everybody, welcome back to the Awakening the Sleeping Giant podcast. My name is John and I am your host, and I am excited today to be walking with you again through my book, Awakening the Sleeping Giant, a guide for living out the New Testament church. Today we are going to be going over chapter 7 and discussing the consumer-minded church. And so that should be super interesting. We are coming to a close on this book. We've only got 2 chapters left after this to talk over, and then we're going to be getting into some other cool stuff on this podcast. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, so let's get into it. So, as always, we have got the pre-chapter assessment questions. So I've got 2 for this chapter. How much emphasis does your church put on growing in numbers? Number 2, how important is formal education concerning your church leadership staff? Think about those questions as I read this book. All right, a consumer-minded church. As Christians living in North America, because of capitalism, we have been taught to be consumers our entire lives, often without even realizing it. From elementary school to doctorate programs, we have been taught that knowledge is power. The more you gain, the more you have. The United States' 3rd president, Thomas Jefferson, based his entire career on this philosophy. And a letter from Alicia Tickner revealed how the teaching world accepted his philosophy as well. The North American church is no different. The structure of the North American church is consumer-based, with a come and hear, knowledge is power mentality. Now, I want to clarify what I am talking about, especially in reference to the come and hear, because I hold come and hear events. I am referring to the church as in the organization as come and hear, meaning coming to a Sunday service. I'm not referring to events taking place outside of the church that are being put on either by church members or some other ministry or organization. I am referring specifically to the traditional church model here. So I just want to make sure that's clear. In countless sermons, church members around the United States have heard, invite your friends next week. If you are going to go to church sorry about that. If people are going to go to church that normally do not, Easter and Christmas are the days they'll come. Invite your friends and family. Recently, a pastor stated, I will do whatever it takes to get people to come to church to hear the word of God. We need to give them what they want so we can give them what they need. Another pastor has recently said, anything short of sin, we are willing to risk to bring people closer to Jesus. Considering how late modern churches have connected with people, Don Corder writes in Connect, How to Grow Your Church in 28 Days Guaranteed, most of the connection methods were passive and rear-loaded. They were passive in that they were dependent on the new visitor initiating the connection. He explains further, the church would wait for the visitor to fill out the connection card, visit the connection center, register for a new members class, attend Sunday school, or request a meeting with the pastor. Corder even has a chapter titled, Throw a Party. This describes what he calls reach events, to attract non-believers to attend church. Corder shares ideas such as chili cook-offs, a carnival, a car show, showing Disney movies, inviting a food truck to the event, and making the event free for all as means to get non-believers to the church. The unintended outcome of these reach events is that it creates a consumer mindset, both in those coming and those throwing the party. According to online dictionary Merriam-Webster, the word consumer is a noun that is typically used as an attribute and means one that utilizes economic goods. The concept is contrary to what we find in the New Testament. In Jesus' Great Commission, we find go and make. When Jesus healed the demon-possessed man in Mark 5, he said, go and tell. The only time Jesus ever used the word come was when calling people unto himself. Let the little children come. Come to me, all you weary. No one comes to the Father except through me. Simply put, by looking at the definition of consumer, as well as using biblical evidence of what the church should look like, the North American church has been acting contrary to the command, go and make, that Jesus gives his disciples in Matthew 28:18-20. One reason for this come and hear mentality is in the North American church, which results in church members being consumers rather than producers, is that knowledge is understood not only to be powerful, but also considered the essential part of being a Christian. This is evident in the church job requirements alone. In a discipleship pastor position for a local church, their knowledge requirement is listed in the job description. A master's degree from an approved seminary with 5+ years of experience is preferred. Another church lists bachelor's and or master's degree in biblical and theological studies, and emphasis in discipleship is preferable. The North American church has taught, even if subconsciously, that Christians should not step into ministry until they have the appropriate knowledge, and they should not teach others or share with others until they have been obedient themselves, which creating a giant anti-productive circle cannot be done unless they have enough knowledge. Look at how much churches spend annually on leadership conferences, church development conferences, and other knowledge/new method focused conferences. The cost for a conference can be between $99 a person and upwards of $1,000 a person. And this generally does not include lodging, food, or transportation. Outside the dollar amount spent, are annual conferences really worth it? After all, if what was taught at these annual conferences worked, would there be a need to go to more? Yet, churches continue to send their staff year after year. The persistent problem is that there is never enough knowledge. And we can find this in Proverbs 1:5, Romans 11:33, Colossians 2:2-3, 2 Peter 3:18, and the amount of knowledge required is judged differently by people. There is no quantitative common standard for knowledge one is expected to gain. In his book, Do What Jesus Did, Robbie Dawkins reminds us that God isn't necessarily looking for qualified people. He's looking for available people whom he can use. Dawkins' view of God is quite contrary to the North American church's insistence on gaining knowledge. That's a lot, but I can imagine you guys can already picture how that is accurate within your local church. So let's look at these post-chapter assessment questions. What would your church need to change to become a producer-minded church rather than a consumer-minded church? Who within your church might God want to use that you have overlooked because of a lack of formal education? How can you utilize them and their gifts? Guys, it is critically important that we realize that for the church to function, formal education is not necessary. What is necessary is a relationship with Jesus Christ, because when you have that relationship, you have that experience, and that is all that is needed. We can learn as we grow, and as we learn, we'll be sharing more. But we cannot rely on somebody's knowledge or education as a pre-qualification for them being able to do ministry. We need to start utilizing everybody in the body who is able and willing and available to serve the Lord.